We want it back in the United States, and if they don't bring it back, we're not going to be very happy.
Taiwan's chip sector faces steep tariffs as U.S. President Donald Trump threatens to take back an industry he says was stolen. Taiwan is lengthening its largest annual military drills, but questions remain whether it's the best move for the country's defense. Investigators search for answers after a department store blast killed 4 people in central Taiwan. Plus, couples in Taipei put their smooching skills to the test with this Valentine's Day kissing competition. Good evening. Welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Joyce Tseng. U.S. President Donald Trump has rolled out his reciprocal tariff plan, a move that could trigger a global trade war even with U.S. allies and partners. And Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has responded to Trump's accusations about the country stealing its chips. U.S. President Donald Trump is doubling down on his pledge to resolve what he calls unfair trade practices with foreign countries, announcing a closely watched plan for reciprocal tariffs, a price match on what other countries are charging American goods. It's a move that could add to inflation and hurt U.S. customers, while also sparking a multi-front trade war with allies and partners, including Taiwan. Trump has been eyeing Taiwan's unmatched dominance in computer chips, led by TSMC. He's repeatedly accused Taiwan of stealing the critical tech from the U.S. and could slap separate tariffs on imported chips.
Taiwan took our chip business away. We had Intel, we had these great companies that did so well, and it was taken from us, and we want that business back. We want it back in the United States. And if they don't bring it back, we're not going to be very happy.
Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has convened senior officials to discuss Trump's latest comments, but has maintained that as the world's most powerful semiconductor country, Taiwan has the ability and willingness to communicate with its partners.
面对川普总统对于我国半导体产业的关切，政府会审慎应对，强化台美沟通。 增进彼此更多的理解，政府也将强化台湾企业增加对美投资的辅导与鼓励。
Despite not having diplomatic ties, the U.S. is Taiwan's main arms supplier, a critical relationship for Taiwan's national security against the Chinese threat of invasion. Taipei has already sent officials to Washington, including Deputy Economy Minister Cynthia Tseng, to, quote, clarify that Taiwan did not steal American chip business, which may not be enough for Trump.
I suspect that that's all theater. I suspect that's all theater and not real. Because there are only 2 people that are running the show right now. It's really the president and Peter Navarro. And I'm really, really skeptical that the 2 deputy ministers are going to be able to talk to either of them. I have this nagging, uneasy feeling that Taiwan is not taking this seriously. And they're thinking about it as really public relations and not like a real threat.
Something Taiwan could do is address its trade surplus with the U.S., which jumped over 80% last year, selling more goods to the U.S. than it bought by almost $65 billion. It's a gap that's also landed Taiwan on Trump's radar as he looks to rebalance U.S. trade. One way Taipei can do this is by letting the value of its currency appreciate, making it cheaper for Taiwan to import more from the rest of the world. It also makes its exports more expensive, which eventually brings trade back into balance. But that goes against decades of central bank policy to keep the exchange rate low.
That the central bank is generating money by having a low exchange rate. Central bank is very closed, and economists in Taiwan, we have talked about this for a long time. It's actually protected. It's protected by the government. It has to be like from legislative yuan's point of view, that there should be a new law to grant more independence.
In the face of Trump's aggressive economic policy to settle its trade gaps with other countries, Taiwan may have to look inward and change some of its ways to maintain its critical relationship with the U.S. Ryan Wu and Joyce Tseng for TaiwanPlus. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the United States is trying to pressure Taiwanese chip giant TSMC to join up with U.S. company Intel or face tariffs. U.S. President Trump has continued to falsely claim Taiwan stole his country's semiconductor industry. For more on the story, Alec McDonald spoke to Numonda's Chief Operating Officer, Marco Mesger.
The United States is reportedly asking TSMC and Intel to start a joint venture, or TSMC face tariffs for their semiconductors. What is your opinion about this reporting?
Yeah, I think when I heard the first time about the potential tariffs on TSMC, I was actually quite surprised, because I think we need to understand when you put the tariffs on, and I think they set it on a broader base on semiconductor, but you need to divide. So you have chips, you have kind of subsystem, and you have computing systems. And so it has not been really clear what is exactly targeted. But one thing what I can tell you, all three would affect American companies to a quite big extent. We are talking now about round about 55 billion US dollar, which could be affected. So it's not clear what the Trump administration wants to put the tariffs on, pure chips, modules, or full systems.
And because these semiconductors are so vital to the economy and everyday technology, ultimately, North American businesses will still need these semiconductors. So what can TSMC do in the instance of tariffs? Will they pass the cost down to consumers?
I think they will pass the tariffs down to the consumers. They cannot suck this up. So I think the point is, like, if there are tariffs which will be imposed, the end customer is normally the ones who has to pay the bill. Yeah. And especially, if there are no alternative to produce, and I have to say on large scale in the USA. So USA with the TSMC fabs, with the committed investment, which have been also attracted by the CHIPS Act from the USA. Now, recent reports basically say that the Trump administration potentially might also change some of the regulations looking forward, but potentially also backward. And I think this would be a bad sign, because I think if companies make this decision based on a government statement, they rely on this, because without these incentives, they probably would not have decided to build up a factory there, because it's higher cost, higher labor cost.
TSMC will not be the only company affected by these proposed tariffs. There are other smaller but still vital semiconductor manufacturers in Taiwan. How would these other companies who do not have the weight that TSMC does react?
These companies, I really feel sorry for them, because you are talking about companies, they have major process nodes. There I would use the term major process nodes above 20 nanometer, 25, 30 nanometer, which is used. Here you have on another front extreme competition from China, because China has no access to the newest cutting edge technology. As you know, they cannot get EUV technology, but they find a way, for example, for DUV technology. Now, when the Taiwanese companies now, in additionally to this, are also faced with additional tariffs, moving to the USA or serving US customers, I think it's a lot of pressure for them. It's a huge challenge. I cannot imagine that it would make so much sense, to build up major process node factories in the USA on large scale. Not only because of the questioning, of the just focusing on this in the USA, but also knowing how much capacity has been built up the last 3 years in China.
That was Marco Mesger, COO at Numonda. Taiwan's Digital Affairs Ministry has announced plans to beef up its satellite communications capacity. The ministry says it wants to expand access to both mobile and fixed satellite communication systems with the aim of strengthening Taiwan's digital resilience and further developing its satellite industry. Taiwan currently relies on submarine cables to connect to the outside world. These cables have been damaged in the past, and some worry China could sabotage them in an attempt to take control of Taiwan.
有很多时候，像是一些救灾灾难发生的时候，有一些地区它可能对外原本的通讯有中断的状况，只要能够架卫星天线，那就可以让那个地区有网路。
Taiwan's space industry has previously said it's building its own satellite system, which would work in a similar way to the US's Starlink. President Lai Ching-te has vowed to put out a special budget to increase Taiwan's defense spending to over 3% of total GDP.
第一，为展现保护国家的决心，将持续推动国防改革，并落实全社会防卫韧性。 优先编列特别预算，让国防预算达到 GDP 3%以上的目标。
Lai's comments came after he met with the country's top national security officials on Friday. He stressed his commitment to protecting Taiwan's democracy while also working with China to maintain stability across the Taiwan Strait. During his speech, Lai also reaffirmed U.S.-Taiwan relations, promising to deepen and broaden security and economic cooperation between the two countries. The U.S. military's Indo-Pacific commander is warning that Chinese military drills around Taiwan could be used to conceal an attack on the country. Speaking at a defense forum, Navy Admiral Samuel Paparo said that Chinese military exercises had become so large that they would be hard to distinguish from an actual attack. He added that these were not exercises, but what he called rehearsals for the forced unification of Taiwan. China claims Taiwan and often threatens to take the country by force. Its military regularly conducts drills near Taiwan and consistently breaches its air defense identification zone. As part of efforts to reform Taiwan's military exercises, the Defense Ministry is looking to double the length of the country's largest annual drill. But observers in the U.S. say that the change in schedule might not make a difference if the tactics aren't changed. For more on this, Jaime Ocon spoke to Michael Hunzinger, associate professor at George Mason University.
How big of a difference will this make in extending the Hangguang exercises from 5 days to 10 days?
My sense is that on the margins, it is a good change. More is better when it comes to training. I think there are some downsides. But to take a quick step back, one of my biggest concerns is, simply put, the new administration in Washington is calling for a radical increase in investment in Taiwan's defense. In essence, saying we want you to double the amount of money you're spending on defense. And Taiwan's MND is saying, hold that thought. Maybe we'll double the number of training days for one exercise. And that's going to be a real problem in the signal that it sends about Taiwan and the MND's seriousness. But to the practical question of whether this is good or bad, the fact is more training is probably better. But if some fundamental changes haven't been made in command and control practices, in organizational culture, and in small unit training, then really what you're doing is doubling the amount of time that you're rehearsing bad habits and reinforcing those bad habits. And so in that respect, more actually might be a bit of a detriment.
Other than extending the duration of the exercises, what else would you want to see from these drills?
Whether Hangguang would remain as a 5-day exercise or a 10-day exercise, what I would like to see is not so much change in that particular evolution, but rather a lot more emphasis on small unit training and making sure the small unit training is not highly scripted, that leaders in the small unit training that maybe the media is not paying attention to really do have the freedom to make mistakes, because if you're not making mistakes, you're not practicing for realistic warfare. All that said, the one thing I would like to see certainly in any of these exercises is a genuine commitment to not being scripted. What I think we're probably going to see is a very scripted version of unscripted training, where units know in advance what the unscripted piece of it's going to be. They're going to really rehearse because nobody wants to be that unit or that commander that makes a mistake while the media is watching.
That was Michael Hunzinger, Associate Professor at George Mason University. An investigation into a fatal gas explosion at a Taichung department store has hit a dead end. That's after the utilities provider said it had cut off gas to the blast site days before it happened. But the discovery that fire safety equipment was disabled and other revelations could see the store's owners fined. John Van Trieste has this report.
4 people are dead and 35 others injured after a suspected gas explosion tore through a floor of Taichung's Shinkwang Mitsukoshi department store on Thursday. The blast damaged the top of the central Taiwan building, including the food court, which was under renovation. Now, investigators probing the incident are facing a puzzle. The utilities company says it shut off gas to the floor being renovated 3 days before the explosion. It also says technicians haven't found signs of a leak or burning, seemingly ruling out natural gas as the cause. Outside observers say understanding how the blast happened requires finding a full scheme of the building's gas lines.
餐厅或是这种所谓的公共设施里面，大部分的瓦斯管线基本上都是设置明管。如果说真的是因为人为方面去把它切割而造成渗漏的时候，你就要去了解说，到底这个管线的这个调查是不是没有做明管，而且是被隐蔽变成是隐蔽管。
As investigators search the wreckage for evidence, the city says it's monitoring progress.
有没有施工，或者是起火点，它的原因、爆炸的原因是什么？那么都是有待呢我们单位呢，包括市府以及呢检调单位要进行进一步的调查之后，会给大家做正式的报告。
But what is now clear is that the department store didn't have permission to remodel at the time of the explosion, a revelation that could have legal consequences.
我们依照规定做室内装修申请的话，是要罚6到30万，但我会以最重的来裁罚。
For 14 years, this department store has been Taiwan's most profitable. And even the highest possible fine for illegal construction, plus an additional $37,000 responsibility fine in the works, won't come close to the estimated $2 million it will lose a day while closed. But with so many deaths and injuries, that may not be the end of the complex's legal problems, as the mystery of what went wrong is unraveled. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, Trump and Putin say a peace deal to end the war in Ukraine is on the horizon, and Ukraine is demanding a seat at the table.
We bring you stories from Taiwan.
Every day of the week.
Our reporters travel the nation.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
News from here in Taiwan and around the world.
What's up, Taiwan? On TaiwanPlus. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Tensions are rising across Europe after U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to begin negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky insists any peace deal must have input from both his country and European allies to ensure a lasting resolution. Rosie Greninger reports.
As US President Donald Trump touts his plans to end Russia's war in Ukraine, Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky is making one thing clear. He will not accept any peace deal deciding the fate of his country without Kyiv's involvement.
Головне, щоб все не йшло по плану Путіна. Коли він хоче зробити все, щоб перемовини у нього були двосторонні, він зі Сполученими Штатами Америки, і ми просто не зможемо акцептувати як незалежна країна будь-які домовленості без нас.
It comes one day after Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to begin peace talks during a phone call with Trump. Zelensky emphasized Ukraine needs ironclad security guarantees to ensure Putin cannot reignite the war, acknowledging that this could mean foregoing NATO membership aspirations. The Ukrainian leader also called for European nations to have a seat at the negotiating table. Those stakeholders, including Germany and the UK, backing his push, saying they would never support a dictated peace.
There can't be any negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine being at the heart of it, and it's really important that Ukraine is in the strongest possible position, whether that's in discussions or whether it's continued fighting.
That's been echoed by the NATO military alliance. Speaking at a NATO conference, Secretary General Mark Rutte urged all Western parties to show a united front in negotiations, so any peace deal made with Russia can last.
We have to make sure that we navigate those talks in a way that the outcome is such that it is clear to the whole world that there is a strong deal.
Trump has since committed to involve Ukraine in the talks. He suggested Russian, American and Ukrainian representatives will meet in Munich at an upcoming security conference. Moscow has yet to respond, while Kyiv says Zelensky is not expected to engage with talks with Russian officials at the event. The Ukrainian president will, however, meet Trump's vice president, J.D. Vance. It comes as analysts say Trump's choice to speak with Putin before Zelensky shows the US president has sidelined Ukraine in the early stages of the peace talks.
I could imagine that they might feel sold out by the US, and that so the past 24 hours have really been quite depressing for Ukrainian partners. But that's why, again, the European role and what really thinking through what else the European allies can do to support that is so, so important.
The European Union has reaffirmed its commitment to supporting Ukraine if the country does not accept a peace deal made between Russia and the US, even if that means losing Washington's backing in the war. Eason Pan and Rosie Granger for TaiwanPlus.
30 people were injured after a car drove into a labor union demonstration in Munich, Germany. Authorities say the crash was a deliberate attack by a 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker. The suspect has been detained by the police. The attack comes as world leaders gather in the city for a high-level security conference. It is one in a series of recent attacks that have made immigration a key issue ahead of elections in Germany later this month. At least 6 people are dead after a fire at a resort construction site in South Korea's southern city of Busan. At least 25 people were injured in the blaze and more than 100 evacuated. The complex reportedly belongs to Banyan Tree, a luxury hotel chain from Singapore. South Korea's acting president Choi Sang-mok said all available resources were being deployed to the site. Authorities are currently investigating the cause. Car makers Honda and Nissan have scrapped plans to merge, leaving both open to new partnerships. The two Japanese companies were in discussion to merge into a $60 billion automotive giant, but talks collapsed after Honda proposed making Nissan a subsidiary. Nissan says it is now open to other partnerships. The chair of Taiwanese electronics giant Foxconn has expressed interest in collaborating with Japanese car makers on electric vehicles, but Nissan's CEO says there have been no management-level talks so far. It's Valentine's Day, and some couples in Taipei got into the spirit with a kissing competition. Cadence Quaranta reports.
可以的，加油 ！3, 2, 1, let's go!
Ahead of Valentine's Day in Taipei, a special competition for kissing. All these couples have to do to win a prize is survive a series of elimination rounds, putting their smooching skills to the test. Round 1, one team member must hold the other and spin around 5 times while locking lips. Can't complete the task? You're out. Round 2 steps up the challenge. It involves kissing while doing math. One person must hold the other while MCs call out 2 numbers to multiply. Teams have to indicate the answer with their hands, answering as many problems correctly as they can, all while kissing. 3 teams make it into the 3rd and final round, and this time it's all about creativity.
3, 2, 1, 开始！哦吼！10、11、12、13、14、15。
We'll spoil the ending. In total, he did 40 push-ups. And now, for the finale.
3, 2, 1, go!
In the end, it was this couple who triumphed. With prize in hand, this couple said they never expected to take the title. But others went into the competition with confidence. This couple, who won second place with their push-up performance, did think they'd win because they say they're experienced. Both groups say the second round of simultaneous kissing and math was the hardest. Ultimately, this couple came up with a strategy. To come up with an idea for the creativity round, they had a strategy for that too. Whatever their methods, motivations, or results, these contestants all got into the Valentine's Day spirit, displaying their kissing skills for all to see. Joseph Wu and Kane Skaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more of our stories. Finally, take a look at this colorful celebration marking the 15th day of the Lunar New Year in Indonesia. I'm Joyce. Take care and see you next time.